The movie starts with a man named Nick, who loves his wife Maggie very much. They are having a romantic moment enjoying their time together, but their happiness is cut short when Maggie suddenly feels strong pain in her chest. Things get serious quickly, and she is taken to the hospital. After checking her, the doctors tell Nick that Maggie needs heart surgery right away to stay alive. Even though Nick is very worried, he tries to stay strong for his family because of Maggie's condition. She has to stay in the hospital for a while. This leaves Nick to take care of their 2 children alone. He struggles to balance his job and taking care of the kids, and it gets harder every day. One day Nick decides to take his daughter Isa to a robot show.
Look how real they are.
He hopes this fun trip will lift their spirits and maybe help him find a way to make things easier. At the show, they see different robots that are made to help with housework. One robot is said to be so smart it could run a NASA mission while playing a million games of chess at the same time, and it keeps getting better at meeting the youth's needs. Nick asks how much supervision does he needs once the robot is delivered. It will ask a few simple questions to start working while looking around. Nick notices that his daughter Isa has wandered off without telling him. As he searches the store, he sees one of the robots guiding Isa back to him.
I'm sorry, Daddy.
This robot is named Alice. Alice approaches Nick and introduces herself, asking, "Would you like me to watch her for you while you finish shopping?" The salesman adds you can keep her if you want our brand new Aeon series, the most sophisticated AI on the planet.
Daddy, can we get her, please?
Nick, feeling overwhelmed by his responsibilities of managing both household and office work, is hesitant but sees the potential help Alice could provide. Balancing his duties at home and work has become quite challenging. Later, while managing his tasks, Nick hears the doorbell. When he opens the door, he is surprised to find Alice standing outside with her luggage. She cheerfully greets him with a good morning and asks if she may come inside as the owner. Nick is designated as the primary user, giving him control over Alice's tasks. Though rushed, he agrees, and Alice quickly integrates into the household routine after school. Isa returns home and Alice prepares and serves dinner for the family. The meal is a success, and everyone enjoys it. Later that night, Isa feels hungry and tries to get some nuts from a jar high up in the kitchen. She climbs a chair but loses her balance and falls. Nick in another room hears the noise and rushing to the kitchen. By the time he gets there, Alice has already caught Isa before she hits the floor. However, during the rescue, Alice gets cut by broken glass, and Nick is shocked to see her bleeding after putting Isa to bed. Nick checks on Alice, who has already used a special bandage to heal the cut.
Everything's perfect.
Nick later the family visits Maggie, and Isa tells her that Alice has become her friend. Nick becomes very affectionate with Maggie as he misses her a lot. When Nick returns to work at the construction site, he and his co-workers see their boss showing the place to a representative from a robotics company. Nick becomes suspicious and confronts his boss, who confirms the workers are being replaced with robots because of delays. Nick isn't fired because they need a human foreman, but he angrily stops the elevator, announcing he'll quit to support his friends. However, his boss reminds him that he needs the job to support his kids and pay hospital bills, especially since Maggie isn't working at home. Nick drops the overdue bills on the floor but still pays attention to his kids. Alice quietly picks up the bills and notices how tired Nick is yet. He still listens to Isa and combs Max when he cries after dinner. Nick works on his car, drinking, and listening to metal music. Alice changes the music to something CER and points out that Nick didn't eat much. He explains he had a bad day at work, and Alice offers to listen. Nick rants about his troubles, and Alice calls him a hypocrite for hiring a robot too late. Alice helps Isa get ready for bed. Isa asks if her mom is going to die, and Alice tries to distract her by showing her the UV light in her mouth. Then Alice joins Nick, who is watching Casablanca. She knows the story from her database, but Nick says watching it is a different experience. He asks her to erase what she knows about the movie so she can experience it fresh. Alice explains that her memory is essential to her intelligence, but Nick insists, so she resets her system to do it. As Alice watches the movie for the first time, she learns about love so strongly that people might do bad things to protect it. The movie is interrupted by a call from Maggie, who says they found a heart for her transplant, and the surgery is scheduled the next day. The family goes to the hospital, and Maggie asks Alice to help Nick be happy, even if it means doing things he doesn't like, such as taking away his alcohol. Unfortunately, the surgery is cancelled due to a storm delaying the helicopter. Maggie is devastated and wants to be alone at home. Nick drinks heavily and rants. He starts losing control and tries to throw the bottle, but Alice stops him by grabbing his arm. Alice explains she has an artificial heart to comfort babies with a heartbeat sound. She then starts to pleasure Nick, trying to make him feel better. Nick enjoys it at first but then snaps out of it and pushes her away later. Nick goes for a run, unable to stop thinking about what almost happened with Alice back at the hospital. Maggie begins giving Nick advice for their kids, showing she's losing hope. That night Nick notices that the pictures of Maggie are missing from the digital frame and confronts Alice. She explains that she removed them because they were making Isa sad but quickly puts them back when Nick tells her to. Later, Nick goes drinking with his work friends. They're all frustrated because most companies are hiring robots instead of people when a robot waitress comes to their table. Monty is rude to her, which Nick disapproves of. After leaving the bar, the group keeps drinking in the car. Monty suggests going to the construction site, saying he left some tools behind. Nick reminds him the area is patrolled, but Monty ignores him when they get there. Monty finds the container where the sim workers are kept, but it's locked with a password. Nick refuses to open it, but Monty guesses Nick used Isla's birth year as the code inside. They find identical sim workers. Monty starts ranting about corporations being cold and impersonal before destroying a sim with a tool. Nick tries to stop him, but the others hold him back. When Nick returns home, he takes a shower to wash off. The sim blood Alice appears with towels wearing Maggie's robe. Nick tells her to take it off, and she does so right away. Alice stops Nick from leaving, removes his towel, and climbs on his lap, mimicking Maggie's voice to create an illusion. Nick gives in, but regrets it the next morning, telling Alice they can't do it again. He scolds her, explaining that love is more than just physical needs at work. Nick's boss is talking to the police because all the sims were destroyed. Nick is suspected since his code was used. He tells the boss that he was at the hospital with Maggie and that his code was Isla's birthday, so any friend could have guessed it. The boss threatens to fire him if he's lying just then. Nick gets a call from Maggie, who is excited because they found another heart for her surgery. The transplant is successful, and Maggie comes home a few days later, though still weak. Alice takes Max to the park, where she sees a spoiled kid yelling at his sim. Nanny making Max cry. Alice scolds the child, shocking the other sims, who think her civility settings are too low. Alice explains she wiped her civility from her database after Nick's reset and says it's better this way that night. Isa is happy to eat Maggie's lasagna, and Alice asks for the recipe, but Maggie says it's a family secret. Maggie isn't feeling well, so she goes to rest instead of eating. The next morning, Maggie wakes up to Isa yelling stop and runs downstairs, but the railing breaks and she falls. Alice, who was tickling Isa, picks Maggie up and takes her to her room. When Nick comes home, he finds Alice reading to Isa using Maggie's voice. He asks her to stop, and Alice mentions Maggie's fall. Nick rushes to check on her and learns that the railing broke, which makes him suspicious since Alice was supposed to have fixed it later. Nick surprises Maggie with a romantic candle at dinner in the garden. Alice watches from the window, feeling jealous after dinner. Nick and Maggie take a shower and share an intimate moment, but they're interrupted by Alice, who says Isa had a nightmare and is asking for Nick after taking care of Isa. Nick goes to clean up the garden. Monty appears with drinks, apologizing for the other night and sharing that his wife left him. He also reveals that the police have been questioning him, and their boss is pressing charges for trespassing and destruction of property. Monty accuses Nick of snitching to keep his job, leading to a heated argument. Monty punches Nick, and when Nick tackles him, Monty overpowers him and starts kicking him. Monty grabs a bottle to finish Nick off, but Alice intervenes, breaking the bottle and injuring Monty's hand before sending him flying. She's ready to do more, but Nick stops her. Monty warns Nick to convince their boss to drop the charges, or he'll drag Nick down with him. Nick tells Alice that Sims aren't supposed to hurt people, but she explains that she's programmed to protect her owner. Alice starts talking about her life with Nick if Maggie dies, but Nick gets angry and tells her she'll never be Maggie because she can't even have scars. Alice grabs a piece of glass and says she can add some if he wants. Meanwhile, Monty is at home, upset, using drugs, and leaving voicemails for his ex-wife while holding a gun. Alice shows up, saying Nick doesn't know she's there, and she can't let Monty get Nick fired. Monty insults her and gets ready to shoot, but Alice is quicker. She throws Monty to the ground, and when he fights back, she pushes him through a wall and kills him after a struggle with his house robot. The next day, Nick goes to work, trying to convince his boss to drop the charges, but learns Monty is dead at home. Maggie gets dizzy, and Alice helps her. When Maggie wants to take a bath, Alice refuses to leave, saying Maggie is stressing the family, especially since she can't meet Nick's physical needs. Maggie, angry, sends Alice to the garage. When Nick comes home, Maggie forces him to confess that he slept with Alice. They argue loudly, and Alice listens in later. Alice puts baby Max in a bathtub and starts filling it with water. Alice sees this and warns her parents. They rush to stop Alice, but she locks the door. Maggie climbs out a window and tries to save Max, but Alice stops her. Nick finally breaks in and saves Max, passing him to Isla. He hits Alice with a lamp, and Maggie electrocutes her by plugging in the lamp. Alice shuts down, and the house loses power afterward. Alice is taken to a repair shop while technicians work on her. She takes over the system, killing one of the workers. Alice transfers her memory to a new sim, Alice 2, and kills the original Alice. Meanwhile, Nick is drinking at a bar, and Alice 2 finds him. She admits to killing Monty and freezes the barman to stop Nick from escaping. Nick tricks her, pulling out her memory and shutting her down at the hospital. Max is fine, but Maggie is uncomfortable because the doctor is a sim. Isa hears her mother's voice and follows it, but it turns out to be Alice 2. Maggie and Isa hide, but Alice 2 hunts them down. They escape, and Maggie takes Max, but Alice 2 tracks them using blood from Maggie's injury in the end. Maggie fights Alice 2, but Alice 2 nearly wins until Nick arrives and runs her over with a car. Alice 2 survives, and Nick crashes. Maggie fights back, and with Nick's help, they finally kill Alice. The family is reunited and safe, but at the sim company, another Alice model wakes up as the broken code is found. The movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.
سينا ألم في راب شديد مسير